Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this dialogue with the program. I'm Shufar Dako, and my guest today is Firehiyot Samuel, who is joining me from the United States of America via Zoom. He's a former Supreme Court judge who has spent most of his life serving as the judge and president of regional Supreme Courts. So we're going to spend some time with him talking about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, especially when it comes to its legal matters these days. Firehiyot, thank you so much for joining me, for making the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
As an icebreaker to our discussion, and for the people that aren't that familiar with you, how about we start our discussion with a little bit introduction about yourself?
Well, thank you again. My name is Firehiyot Samuel. I have been in the United States for a while. I started my career at Southern Nations, Nationalities, and the People's Regional State as an advisor of the Regional Council and the President. And I worked for about 9 years as a Supreme Court judge and also as a president. Finally, before I left Ethiopia, I was also the chairperson of 2005, or in Ethiopian calendar, 1997 Post-Election Crisis Commission, which was established by the then parliament to investigate the post-election crisis. And I was the chairperson of that. And actually, when the commission which I chaired gave a decision which was not a kind of in line with the thought process of the then government, we didn't disagree, and then I left Ethiopia. That's a little bit a kind of brief introduction about myself.
All right, thank you so much, Firehiyot, for that introduction. So this shows us that you're the perfect guest for our discussion, to talk about the legal matters of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which Ethiopians from all walks of life are building on the Abbay River. But before we dive right into the discussion, I want to ask you this personal question, Firehiyot. What does the GERD mean to you, as an Ethiopian, as an African, as an American as well?
GERD is a pride for me. And the GERD is a national security interest to my country. And the GERD is a strategic investment that positively impacts our future generation. And it is also a mechanism to keep a balance of power in the Horn of Africa. And GERD is, for me, when we think about the development of Ethiopia, energy is everything. So it is the biggest input to my country's development. And it is a proof that we can do something greater than whosoever can imagine.
Absolutely. This is the flagship of Ethiopians from all walks of life, proudly building on the Abbay River with the prospect of lifting millions out of the poverty line and out of darkness. So as an Ethiopian, this is historic, because everybody is part of this project, right?
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah. You know what? One of the things in connection with the GERD that we are often hearing about, as you know, is agreements, including the ones in the past, such as the 1959 agreements and, of course, others. We're seeing that they're going back and forth in search of agreements, especially binding ones. So I want to ask you this question as well. From a legal perspective, from a legal point of view, what do you see here, and how realistic can this be?
Well, let me give you a kind of perspective about the treaty which Sudanese and the Egyptians are kind of talking about. Especially 1959 agreement, which they share Nile River between Egypt and Sudan. Basically, in international law, if a country is not part of a particular treaty, that country is not forced to oblige and to comply to a treaty to which the country is not party to, or to, there is no way for Ethiopia to be forced to abide by that treaty. And it is totally irrelevant to Ethiopia. It is not binding for us as in Ethiopians and as a country. The reason is straightforward and simple. There is no way to force a country to obey or just to comply to a treaty to which that country is not a party. We have never ratified that treaty. We have never adopted that treaty, and we were not part of that treaty. And it's very straight and simple. 1959 agreement between Sudan and Egypt is irrelevant to Ethiopia.
It's also, I think, driven by colonial mentality and colonial patronizing, idea, right?
Yes, it's sad that Egyptians and the Sudanese are kind of acting in a way which is totally outdated. We are in 21st century, and already international customary law and international treaties and the way 21st century business in international community is totally different, and they, I think, stuck to a 19th century mindset up, and that's not gonna work now.
Yeah, absolutely. Still staying on this agreement on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, what are the potential benefits and losses for Ethiopia, if Ethiopia ratifies this binding agreement, in your view?
Well, we want to have actually the binding agreement that would kind of help to settle this dust down the road, because if we have to have an agreement, this is the right time to have an agreement, because we start using Nile River. They have been using Nile River without even consulting us, without giving even enough information when they were building a dam. When they were Sudanese were they built about 6 dams. They didn't consult us. But when Ethiopia starts Renaissance Dam, the Ethiopian government informed them that's a kind of protocol about using a river that crosses countries. Ethiopia followed the international protocol of using water. But having said that, since there is no agreement about Aswan Dam in Egypt, and since there is no agreement about 6 dams which were built on Nile River in Sudan, we are not saying that we are going to follow the same pattern of doing things on Nile River, but we followed international protocol, and we informed them as a nation. When I say we, I'm part of Ethiopia, so I would say we, because
right.
We own it. So having said that, but as to your question, we are not against agreements, and we are not even following the way they have been doing their business, but we are following international standard. We have to have an agreement. When we have to have agreement, we should be in good faith. The agreement should be in good faith, and it should be fair, and it should be equitable, and it should be reasonable, and it should also include all upper riparian countries like Uganda, Rwanda, and in short, it should be comprehensive. That is gonna kind of settle a dust around Nile River usage between upper riparian countries and lower riparian countries. Basically, they are asking to have an agreement on the operation of our dam. Since we are not asking the agreement about the operation of Aswan Dam, we are not asking an agreement about the operation of other 6 dams on Nile Basin in Sudan. I don't understand why they are asking us about the operation of our dam. Aswan Dam is for Egyptians and the Gard Dam is for Ethiopians. However, having said that, as to the benefit of agreement, we want the agreement to be done or to be concluded in good faith. Especially we need good faith from their side. We need a sense of having equitable and a reasonable utilization mindset from Sudanese and the Egyptian side. And also, we don't want to forfeit our future usage of our Abbay River to our river too. When I say future usage, if whatsoever agreement we are going to have now is going to affect our future generation, so we have to really be careful about what kind of agreement we are going to sign with Egyptians and the Sudanese. Whatsoever the case, just to have a kind of solid, comprehensive agreement will help us to reduce geopolitical tension, and it's gonna help also to develop together with other upper and lower riparian countries. So we are in favor of agreement, but the question is what type of agreement?
Ethiopia still maintains, I think, its stance of fair utilization of the Abbay River without causing significant harm to the downstream nations. So as long as I think Ethiopia's fair stance is met or taken into consideration, I don't think Ethiopia objects this agreement. But as you said, you know, we see this ironical appealing to agreement. You know, Egypt previously paid no attention to Ethiopia when it, you know, built its dams, but now it's crying foul here. Beautifully put, Firehiyot, there. Let me also ask you this question, Ato Firehiyot. You know, what are some of the things that Egypt and Sudan are missing as we speak, you know, which is driving them to the point of disregarding Ethiopia's rights to using its own natural resources for development, which not only benefits Ethiopia, but the entire region as well?
Well, it is sad that they stuck in old way of dealing things, and it is sad that they are thinking in really outdated way. They are saying that all or nothing proposition. They call it historical right, but from our side we say that that is historical injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And
historical injustice.
It is historical injustice, and it is time to rectify that historical injustice. But they want to stick to that historical injustice, but they are saying that historical right. There is no such legal meaning for historical right. So, for example, in 1990s, they had a Toshika project in Egypt. They had a plan to cultivate 200,000 hectares of land, and they didn't consult us. This is our common water, and that is what they are calling that historical right. They excluded us from Nile usage agreement in the past. That's a kind of regretful action from their side. And basically, they are stuck in their national narration. They are trapped in their own narration, which might be useful for their national politics, but it has nothing to do with us. They can create their own narration, but they cannot impose their own national narration of historical right on upper riparian countries, especially on Ethiopia. We can have our own narration about anything. We are not trying to impose our narration in any African country, and we expect the same, that any Sudanese government or Egyptian government shouldn't impose their own national narration. That can be for internal consumption. Having said that, when you mentioned that not to cause significant harm, right?
Yeah.
We have to be careful about that word, because sometimes a significant harm might be self-inflicted significant harm. The way they have been using that water for centuries might be a recipe to cause significant harm on them, because if they have been a kind of planning to have 1,000 golf courses in Egypt for higher class wealthy Egyptians, if they have been planning to have a rice field which consumes a lot of water, if they have a plan just to have thousands and thousands of hectares of land in Egypt, that means they are using unreasonably, they are using the water in the way that is not reasonable, that is not equitable. If that is a pattern of usage of water in Egypt, whenever we use our share, that's gonna cause harm on them, but that harm should be interpreted in a way that is self-inflicted significant harm. So when we say there is international standard about not causing significant harm, let me read it from World Bank document that that says that I quote, most experts in the field believe that the water course conventions has subordinated the obligation not to cause significant harm to the principles of equitable and reasonable utilization. What does that mean? If a country is not using the water equitably and reasonably, if the usage of that particular country is unreasonable and unequitable, when the other upper riparian countries come and when they are ready to use their share, at the end of the day, the lower riparian countries who have been using that water unreasonably and unequitably is gonna get some type of harm. That might be even significant harm. That is gonna be a self-inflicted significant harm. When we talk about significant harm, not causing significant harm, that is after we get our fair share. That means after we get equitable share, we have to use that equitable share of ours and a reasonable share of ours in a way not to cause significant harm to the lower riparian countries. Let me give you an example. For example, if you and me have a house in Addis, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume that 6 bedrooms there in that house. Let's assume that you without consulting me start using all 6 bedrooms, and you invited your friends to live in that all 6 rooms, your families, I don't know, you ignored me.
Yeah.
While we own that house in common, and on someday, when I was able to use that house, if I come and I start using that house, I have to tell you and your friends to go out of the 3 rooms which I should have used it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As soon as I start using my 3 rooms, while you are using your own 3 rooms, as soon as I start claiming to use that 3 rooms, your families who used to live in that 3 rooms, your friends whom you might have invited to rent that rooms, they have to leave the house, right?
Exactly.
If there is no room to rent in Addis, they might be homeless, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
isn't it that caused by you, who you have no idea how to use the common property? If that is going to be translated in a way that I caused significant harm on you, no. The way you used our common property, the house in this example, might cause significant harm on you. It is because of my share, my equitable share, my reasonable share of 3 rooms which I used. So whenever we talk about the significant, not causing significant harm, we have to be mindful that the reasonable usage and equitable usage always precedes the principle of not causing significant harm. Just I want to give emphasis about this. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful explanation, Firehiyot. You know what? Talking about historic right from a legal perspective, is there such a thing as a historical right? You know, Egypt says it has historical rights. You know, so legal wise,
simple and plain.
Yeah.
No country on this planet can claim historical right to use our equitable and the fair share of our own resource.
Thank you so much. As you know, Egypt says it is the gift of the Nile. What does this mean in the first place? And yeah, go ahead, please.
Well, that they can. There are narrations all over the world about when we create when our forefathers create Ethiopia, they have their own narration. Americans have their own narration, Europeans, and so on and so forth. But my point is that we shouldn't be taken away by the narration of Egyptians. That narration can be kind of used. They can be used for their own conception. It cannot be used just to impose their narration on us. And it is really a narration that hinder Egyptians from thinking out of box. To be honest, some of the narrations are unreasonable. It is more unreasonable when you create a narration for your internal consumption, and then when you try to impose it to someone else who is irrelevant. And for us, that narration is irrelevant. Basically, they are creating a kind of narration of 1 drop of water is equal to a kind of 1 drop of blood, which is basically a kind of a death trap to their own reason. When you create a narration that equates a drop of blood with a drop of water, that is a narration that kind of cripples your way of thinking reasonably. Basically, when narration goes out of control, what we are learning is that it is gonna be a death trap for a reasonable thinking. They have to go out of this narration. They have to think out of box. Yeah. And they cannot love Nile, but not at the expense of. They can love Nile. They can say whatsoever about Nile, but not at the expense of other countries. Not at the expense of Nile, which belongs to all of us.
Yes.
So if they believe in their own narration, Egyptians should come and help to plant trees in Ethiopia. That's gonna help probably just to increase the volume of Nile.
Yes, of course.
We are planting trees all over Ethiopia. There is a green legacy. Probably if they really love, if Egyptians are falling in love with Nile, let them come and plant with Ethiopian friends, Ethiopian people. And if they plant probably billions of trees all over Ethiopia, that would help just to keep Nile flow to Egypt. That way they can kind of show their love, their true love for the Nile.
It's kind of tantamount to, infringement of sovereignty and territorial integrity, right?
Yes, that's this is even at personal level. We can individually we believe about our life, our private life matters, but we cannot impose the way we think on our neighbors. So it is Ethiopia's sovereign country, whether they like or not. Ethiopia is capable of using its own resource without harming, causing any significant harm to any other country. And they have also, we need Egyptians and Sudanese people just to stay in their territory in terms of their own narration or in terms of using whatever resources they have, and then give us a room also for Ethiopians to use our own resources.
The EU and Egypt have recently issued a statement for the three parties to come to binding agreements. In this connection, what does the law say here? Talking about, the legal matters when it comes to these binding agreements, and is there any law preventing Ethiopia from utilizing its own resources to its own national development?
No, by any means. Just all agreements which excludes Ethiopia on its own resources is irrelevant. To be honest with you, Egyptians were colonized. They have their own masters, and they had a couple of treaties their masters have been signing on the back of them. And still it is shame that they went to their masters to speak on behalf of them, to have a treaty on behalf of them, to talk on behalf of them. That is a kind of historical shame. As they said, historical right, but we would call this historical shame that always just sticking behind of their colonial masters. On the part of EU, to be honest with you, the EU decision is an example that the leadership of EU has they think that they have all the right to decide on African matters. It is a shame that 100 years ago, their fathers in the same meeting room, they talked about scrambling Africa. Now, after 100 years, still they sit in the same room, their sons and daughters, talking about Africa and deciding about Africa, excluding the sovereign country, Ethiopia, from their desk, from their meeting, and telling what to do on our own resources. And also just giving direction for the then colonized country, Egypt, and sending a message through a colonized country through a messenger. That is a shame. My message is simple. As a Lord, Africa is not a kindergarten in their backyard to which they can decide, about which they can talk and just say whatsoever. Africa is a big continent. Let Africans decide about themselves. Let Africans just deal their own business. I know that EU is a partner in development. I'm not denying the fact that we are living in a world where we need each other. But my objection is that we are not in a world where someone is sitting somewhere and deciding about the fate of sovereign countries in Africa. So having said that, African Union is created for a reason. Let African Union deal it. Let Africans deal their own issue and their own matters. They are capable of doing that. And also we are, as an Ethiopian and as an African, I'm really disappointed with the attitude of Egyptians that always they think that they are gonna get solution from the then masters.
Yeah, and the Arabic as well.
Yes, that is a shame. That has big political implication in the future of Egyptians as a nation, also Sudanese, and they have. My message is that Africa is capable of dealing their. Africans are capable of dealing their own matters, and the African Union is capable of dealing this thing. There is nothing, and there is no reason to go to EU, and the EU also should stay away from this thing, which is totally it's not their business to begin with.
The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam can benefit the whole region, creating a strong electricity bond, which is much needed, especially in the Horn of Africa. So in their persistent search for binding agreements, are these nations preventing the legal rights of Ethiopia's neighbors from getting access to electricity? Coming from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, from legal perspectives, Firehiyot here. What do you see here?
Basically, they are kind of creating a problem on regional integration.
Okay.
The regional integration which Ethiopia is aspiring cannot come but just by wish. It should be practical, right?
Absolutely.
When we put the regional integration in practice, when we put on the ground, it should be energy, economic integration. It can be political integration. It can be basically people to people integration, right? That can start by sharing energy. When we say energy, regional integration cannot be kind of realized unless we have economic integration. Economic integration cannot be realized unless we have energy. It's crystal clear.
Yeah.
In that case, Egyptians are basically being an obstacle for regional integration, and Ethiopia is ready to share Nile equitably and reasonably, and Ethiopia is ready to share the benefit of the dam also. We are not sharing the dam, but we are sharing the benefit of dam. When we share the benefit of dam, it is more of transactional. We're based upon the market value. We can sell, we can provide them energy, even including Egyptians actually, including Sudanese actually. They can get electricity from us, and they can. This dam can be a kind of a hub for regional integration. So Egyptians and the Sudanese should know that they are standing on the way of regional integration, not only just they are standing on the way of the right of Ethiopians to use their own resource, but they have to know that they are standing on the way of regional integration of Kenya with Ethiopia, and Somalia with Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, Sudanese, all regional states, all the way down Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi, because if we produce enough energy, we are going to sell to them, and we are going to help them flourish. That way, the whole Horn of Africa is going to be integrated in a way just to have prosperity. So they have to know that when they say no to the dam, they are saying no to regional integration too.
Thank you so much for those ideas. Let's now turn our attention to the upcoming national dialogue. So I also want your ideas about this upcoming national dialogue, which is inclusive and the first of its kind, I think. So what are some of the ways that you see that some legal experts, professionals in legal matters and lawyers can help bring about successful national dialogue?
As a professionals, as a responsible citizens, one of the things which we can do is creating a positive narration around national dialogue. Mm-hmm. There are too much conspiracy theories going on. Basically, it's unfortunate that a lot of Ethiopians are doomed to believe conspiracy theory, and we are doomed to believe all kinds of gossips, and we are doomed to believe all kinds of negative things. I know that we have some kind of PTSD from our past history, post-traumatic syndrome type of thing, but we have to go out of that historical bondage of being trapped in negative narration. Our duty now as a lawyers, as a professionals, is just let's create positive narration around this national dialogue. Number one. Number two, let us talk about the importance of national dialogue. Basically, that's part of creating positive narration. And the third is just let us promote we can do spirit about this national dialogue. We can do it. Basically, we can, this is not something which we are kind of doomed to just to destroy each other. No, we can change our mindset up. We can change the way we think about our country, the way we think about our history. We can think about our future. So the whole thing is that we, as a professionals, as a lawyers, we can help clarify what the commission also can do and not what they cannot do. But one of the things which I'm concerned with is that we shouldn't think in a way that this commission is a solution for everything under the heaven. No. As a professionals, as a lawyers, also we have to clarify that what the commission can do and what the commission cannot do. Basically, if there is a kind of inflated expectation about this commission, that would be also a problem in the future. Mm-hmm. And so in this sense, we have to help to sort out major national issues also. What is our major national issues? We have to know that we shouldn't spend our time on some of a kind of ad hoc national issues which pop up from day to day, from sometimes here and there. We shouldn't get distracted. We have to prioritize our national issues, and the professionals can help to sort out those major national issues. And also we have to participate actively. We cannot afford to sit by side and talk about all kind of fancy things. We have to participate. Any reasonable person, any professional, any person who claims to be expert on the matter. Now my call is like this as an Ethiopian. My call is that let us help, let us participate. Ordinary, now it is, I think, a time for ordinary Ethiopians to be heard, because you know that we have been hearing governments for centuries and centuries, but it is time to hear the ordinary Ethiopians through the national dialogue.
One of the potential areas that the national dialogue would address, it could be, the Constitution. So if it tries to amend the Constitution, what are some of the processes going to be like?
Well, probably just let me give you a kind of, you brought up good point, because that constitution is a kind of, it is a problem for some of the current issues, and it is a kind of a child of the problem. It's that constitution came as a quote unquote as a solution for a problem we had before, and it became another problem for us. So I'm not kind of really just condemning that constitution for everything, but there are some provisions which should be amended, and there are also good provisions. There are also good provisions in that constitution. Anyway, but before I give you a kind of specific articles and how to amend it, just let me kind of give you some idea about the constitution. You know that whenever we talk about constitution, there is a tendency in Ethiopia that, Emperor Haile Selassie's constitution, or Derg's constitution, or EPRDF's constitution. Now, we don't want even the nomenclature to be like that. I want Ethiopian constitution. So we cannot wish to have Ethiopian constitution unless we create an environment where Ethiopians can participate in the very process of constitution making. So moving forward, I want to hear our sons and daughters to say our constitution rather than saying, oh, prosperity's constitution, or probably Dr. Abiy's constitution. I don't want to hear that, because as soon as prosperity collapses, I don't know, it might be in the long, it's not created for eternity, and then the constitution is gonna collapse, because that's what happened when the Derg collapsed. Then the Derg constitution collapsed. As soon as the Haile Selassie government collapsed, their constitution collapsed. Anyway, having a kind of giving some idea about my mindset about constitution, let me kind of talk about the amending the constitution. By the way, there are two provisions which we have to be mindful of. We have to be mindful when we talk about the constitution, amending constitution, I mean. It is Article 104 and Article 105. So there are two very major important points which we have to be mindful. First of all, when we amend constitution, or when we plan to amend constitution, the initiation of amending constitution can come from 2/3 vote in the House, or the House, that's a federal parliament. There can be it can be also, it can come, the initiation, that a proposal can come also from 2/3 vote of House of Federation, and it can come from 1/3 of States Council by 50+ votes. That means by majority vote. That's the kind of how we initiate the amendment, just the proposal of amendment. That is in Article 105 of Constitution, right? Now there is another article when we think about amendment. That is Article 105 of the Constitution, 105 of the Constitution. In that article, we have to be careful that amendment of the Constitution is just divided into two categories. The first category is that it's starting from Article 13 to Article 45. That is human rights and the democratic rights, kind of, those are the provisions that deal that kind of states about human rights and the democratic rights. Those articles cannot be amended unless all the states agree to amend that. What does that mean? We have now, I think we have 11 states.
Yeah, 11.
And so let's assume that 12. When we think about amending article starting from 13 to 44, we cannot amend unless all these 12 states agree to amend it. So at this point, until we get a kind of out of woods about the crisis which we got in Tigray, we cannot talk about amending those provisions. The second one is that the rest of the articles, basically from Article 1 to 12, and from Article 45 to Article to 103 and the 106, those articles can be amended by 2/3 vote of the joint session of House of Federation and the House of Representatives, and also by 2/3 of the Council of States by majority vote. What does that mean? Out of 12 states, what is the 2/3 of 12 is, I think, 8, if I'm right mathematically. If 8 states agree to amend those provisions, they can amend. That means even if there is objection from 1/3 of the states, still we can amend the constitution. But when it comes to those provisions, even the provisions that are basically the 104 and the 105, Article 104 and the 105, we cannot even amend them, because if you amend the amendment articles, you can get around the whole issue. But the Article 105 is a kind of, it locked. Even we cannot amend the amendment provision itself to get around this amendment procedure. So having said that, now the issue is that there is big elephant in the room, Article 39. It is crystal clear that unless all the states agree to change Article 39, there is no way to change it. And again, there is no way to amend the amendment procedure unless all the states agree to change the amendment procedure itself. Because when I mentioned Article 13 to 44, there is another article that is actually Article 104 and 105 is also included in the procedure where all the states should agree to amend it. So I'm kind of giving your audience and you a kind of brief idea about amending the constitution. We have to be very careful that we shouldn't put undue and unfair pressure on government as if government can change this constitution overnight. No.
What a wonderful explanation and eye-opener explanation indeed. I wish we could continue, but due to time constraints, we have to stop here. Thank you so much for your wonderful ideas so far.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Well, dear viewers, with that, we come to the end of today's program. Thank you so much for being with us so far. Until I see you next time with another program, it's goodbye from me, Shfaralak.